What if you walked into the woods, wandered around, and found yourself in an entirely different world? And no, it's not Narnia, it's Birthright. What's up, and you are watching Comic Relief, where it's not a joke, we're just serious about comic books. This is where we review and recommend trade paperback comic books and graphic novels for your convenience, but definitely for our pleasure. And today we're going to be diving into Birthright from Image Comics, which is a really interesting and fun read that I think a lot of people would really enjoy. Let's talk about it a little bit. Definitely think everybody would enjoy. So let's talk about why. First off, the premise of this book actually grabbed me from the very start. I thought it was a very clever and interesting way to go about a fantasy world and bring it into a modern light, and it's really cool how they do that. Now, I mean, there's a lot of things when it comes to independent titles, and most importantly, when it comes to Image, they're all creator-owned. So the writers actually created up this plot, this premise, this concept by themselves, and the story kind of unfolds along throughout the entire series. This is book one from that series, so let's dive into what it's all about. Let's check out the synopsis. For the Rhodes family, losing their son was the most devastating thing that could ever have occurred. Yeah, tell me about it. Not like I would know. Anyway. But it couldn't prepare them for what happened when he returned. What? Fantasy mixed with the modern day becomes the new reality in this Image and Skybound original. Wait, that's it? There's nothing more. Wow, from a synopsis point of view, that kind of sucked. It didn't really reveal pretty much anything. But that's why we do this, to recommend and to talk about what books are so that you can enjoy them. From the cover alone, you can tell that this is so much more than just a child gone missing and coming back to his family. There's so many fantasy elements in this. And bringing it into the modern world becomes really interesting. And it may be something that you think that you've read or seen before. It really isn't. Little Mikey and his dad are in the woods playing catch, and when Mikey loses the ball, he runs after it, only to find himself not lost in the woods, but lost in an entirely different world than the one that he knows about. But the interesting thing about this book is that at the very beginning, we see that years go by, and we see it from the family's perspective. Missing Michael and as a son and as an older brother, seeing how the family copes with that, and they don't cope very well. Only to find out that after those years, a man claiming to be their son, that's right, a man claiming to be their son, comes back into the world. Mikey's all grown up after 30 years of being in an entirely different world that moves in different time, come back to see his family. But why? Now, how's that for a synopsis, Image? Call me. Seriously, it's really something that's unique in itself, because when I first heard that it's about a boy that gets lost, that comes back only after a few years later to be a grown adult to see his family. That's pretty interesting, right? The cool thing about this is that not only do we see his family side of it, but we see him grow up through the years, the decades almost, in this other world. Him becoming a man and them struggling to kind of figure out who they are until they meet, where they have to deal with things in real time, but also while flashing back on Michael's childhood. It's really cool, and it's very, very interesting, and the world building in the fantasy world is really, really cool. There's a lot of magic, there's a lot of, I mean fantasy, right? There's a lot of elements to it, and I think it hits really, really well with the time that it's been given. Because it's a comic book, it doesn't have very much time to kind of like get into it and dive into it. I think it actually does pretty well for, considering. Let's talk about the artwork in this. That is another thing that really grabbed me, because it's really vibrant, it's very well drawn out, and I think that the artist really worked together well with the writer, giving the writers what they wanted as well as a great world to be able to build. Because if you're going to be building a world, you need to be able to make that world appealing, and especially in a fantasy one full of magic, it needs to be wondrous. And I think the coloring and the artwork in general when it comes to that really nails it. It made me really want to dive deeper into the world, and I think that's through the artwork in itself. What makes this book a really fun read is that being a grown adult, he comes and meets up with his brother and as well as his family, his mother and father, and it's almost as if it's like old times. He's still a kid at heart, even though he's a grown adult. I mean, he still treats his dad as if he's his best friend, as well as his brother as if, I mean, even though he's an older man, he still is the younger brother, and so he looks to his brother as an example almost, and it's really weird. But the thing is that nobody really knows to trust him or not. Not everyone in his family warms up to him the way that he wants to at first, because wouldn't you be skeptical of a 30-year-old man claiming to be your 5-year-old son, other than the father? And I think that kind of bothered me a little bit, but it is a comic book. You have to work with so much within such a little time for people to get interested within issues. So I get that. But I would still say that it's a great and fun read because I'm a fantasy junkie. I kind of like that stuff. And not to mention, I really enjoy the fact that it's a different twist because it's brought into the modern day, and he's very much outside of his time and his element, but he is still very familiar with it because he did grow up in it when he was a kid. It's just a fun time. It's not my favorite book in the entire world, but I definitely think you should read it. I give this a 3 out of 5 stars. Mainly because it's just a fun time. And there's a few books in the series. I think there are 7 altogether. This is volume 1, and I've definitely read a few others and had a great time. Not everything completely adds up. I don't really necessarily know everybody's motives yet, and I don't necessarily understand why they're doing certain things, or it's a little bit over the top for me, but I mean, that's part of the fun, right? A lot of the fun comes from magic and things that are fantasy built, and to create and to mix them together in this world. Yeah, none of it's gonna make sense, but it is still a fun time. I think everybody would enjoy this if they wanted to kick back and hit something up fantasy-wise, but also with really great artwork and just a good time. So thank you guys so much for tuning in here at Comic Relief, here on Nerdy Blurb TV. This is where we try and do all the nerdy stuff here on this channel because we like that stuff. But we just want to say thank you so much to our sponsors who actually sponsor this episode, as well as the show Comic Relief, because comic books is kind of their thing, and that is Dragon's Keep in Utah County, and they are growing so much more because they are the #1 trusted comic book store in the entire state of Utah. They have friendly staff and a great, freaking awesome, great selection of comic books within a really huge area. They have multiple different stores. If you want something, they most likely got it, and if they don't, you can order it easily with ease, but also great prices. Dragon's Keep, a place where adventure hides for you to find. Now, on a serious note, this is the end of the video, but that doesn't mean that you can't go and check out the rest of ours because we cover a lot of nerdy stuff here on this channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, just keep on reading. Thank you guys so much for tuning in here today at Nerdy Blurb TV and checking out this video. Consider subscribing if you're into this kind of stuff because we like to keep it nerdy here and interact with cool individuals such as yourself. Have a great day.